Trump's big, beautiful bill, here's what's hiding in it. It has a hidden poison pill to help cripple the courts. As you probably know, Trump has been in an ongoing fight with the courts on a slew of things. Many of them, they found the Trump government to not be, found him in contempt, to not be carrying out the court's orders. And he wants to stop that from happening. He wants to stop these courts from being able to do that to him. Basically, this is cutting away the checks and balances of our government, which there aren't many. Our government doesn't have a lot. I mean, it is the ruling elite benefiting the ruling elite. That's how it works. But one of the slight checks is that the courts can say that Donald Trump has done something illegal and needs to answer to the courts. Well, the bill, hiding behind the premise that it is an appropriations measure, prohibits any funds from being used to carry out court orders holding executive branch officials in contempt. Of course, without funds to do something, they generally don't happen. This is designed to enable Trump and his officials to continue defying court orders. It is almost certainly unconstitutional, but as we've seen, the courts often don't care enough to do anything about the unconstitutional stuff that Trump does. Bonus for the tax prep industry. So you might not have realized this, but a couple of years ago, the Biden administration sponsored a direct file measure that allowed taxpayers, it was like an online tool, to file their taxes online for free and not have to pay commercial tax preppers. The program is now available to taxpayers in 25 states. It was, largely very useful and saved people, especially those who don't have a lot of money to begin with, saved them a lot of money to just go online and get help preparing their taxes. The bill repeals the entire program because it was helping people. I mean, that's what our government does. It finds out what's helping people and then it shreds that. More savaging of migrants. The bill adds $45 billion to build immigration jails, more than 13 times ICE's current detention budget. The bill would allow indefinite detention of immigrant children. Indefinite, that's horrifying. It also adds several fees intended to harass migrants. And these fees for people who are dead broke, which is a lot of people who come to this country because they are in trouble and they're broke. And like, if you have a lot of money in other countries, you can usually buy your way out of a lot of hardship. But if you don't have a lot of money, things get a lot more tricky. And of course, most of them are fleeing destruction that the United States has created around the world. But the measure charges families $3,500 to reunite with their child that was left at the border. How honestly savage could you get? $3,500 to reunite with your child. It's unbelievable. How sick do you have to be to even come up with this stuff? Like, who's sitting there trying to think of this stuff? A person seeking asylum will have to pay an application fee of at least $1,000. Again, these are people that often will work at jobs that make $7 an hour, $8 an hour. And to pay these type of fees, it's incredibly difficult. Terminating the tax status of nonprofits. It doesn't sound like that big a deal, but it actually is one of the bigger ones that alternative media, independent media is very worried about, because there are a lot of media organizations, independent media organizations, that are technically nonprofits. And to have their nonprofit status taken away would destroy their business model. It would cause many of them to have to completely change the way they do things or possibly go bankrupt. And so it's not just like, oh, we're going to stop these, little charities or things. It's also going after independent media. I think that's one of the biggest reasons they're doing it. And so the reconciliation text gives the administration the power to define nonprofits as terrorist supporting organizations and expedite the ending of their tax status. This is ostensibly directed against pro-Palestinian groups. This doesn't apply to me because I'm not a nonprofit, but I have worked for, like, Mint Press News is a nonprofit. And I have worked for outlets that are nonprofits, and it would destroy their business model. It would make it almost impossible for them to function. And it basically, because they are calling attention to this genocide, because they're doing what I do on a daily basis, which is revealing the horror show of the U.S.-Israel genocide against Gaza, along with many other things that they do excellent work about. But that's one of the big ones. It could also be used to suppress free speech and activism of climate organizers and others. Once you put this into a bill that they can just revoke the nonprofit status, they could go after other organizations that are, trying to do something about climate change, the climate crisis, that even if it's not about Palestine. But of course, we should be horrified that they'd go after outlets that are alerting you to genocide as well. Blocking state regulation of AI. So I did a segment on this several days ago. The bill prohibits any state or subdivision from passing, quote, any law or regulation regulating artificial intelligence models, artificial intelligence systems, automated decision systems during the 10-year period beginning on the date of the enactment of this act. 10 years of zero regulation on AI. That is remarkably horrifying. Even if AI didn't progress, let's assume it just stayed where it is right now, which it's not going to. But let's assume it just stayed where it is. We are already at the point where there are often images and things online where you don't know whether they're fake or real, and someone's trying to pass them off as real. And this would make it so you couldn't regulate any of that. You couldn't say, hey, if you take somebody's face and put it on revenge porn, that's illegal. These are kind of no-brainer regulations, but this is making it so there's zero regulation for 10 years. Now, of course, there's far more dystopian stuff. AI could ultimately, launch nuclear missiles or something, but I'm just using the light stuff. I'm just talking about not regulating fake revenge porn. I'm not even getting into what AI could be like in 5 or 10 years. And, we haven't bothered to regulate it at all. Gutting the estate tax. You have to have a lot of money for the estate tax to matter. Only 2% of the U.S. population pay any estate tax, like any. And only a smaller percentage of that pay a lot in estate tax. So this is something that says when a really rich person dies, their money should not just be given to one spoiled brat. It should go back into the society that it came from. Now, of course, unfortunately, we have a horrific government that's committing genocide around the world. So you don't like to see that your taxes go to that kind of thing. That's not so fun. As if the current exemptions were not enough, the bill raises the no tax floor to a staggering $15 million. So this means any inheritance that's under $15 million, there'd be no estate tax. There'd be zero tax on it for a single person, or $30 million for couples. So a couple could leave $29.99 million to their children or heirs tax-free. As recently as 2001, 2% of estates paid some tax on the estate tax. With this change, the percentage falls to less than 0.08%. So basically, it's saying that the top 2% of richest people in this country have it too hard, and therefore we need to make it only the 0.08% that would pay any inheritance tax. Weakening the child tax credit. The bill nominally increases the current child tax credit from $2,000 to $2,500 per child, but it also lowers the eligibility income threshold, making millions of children ineligible. The bill also excludes from the credit 4.5 million children who have a parent without a Social Security number, but who pay taxes with a tax identification number. So basically, immigrants that have a right to live here. These children are predominantly U.S. citizens with an immigrant parent. It's really designed, seems like what this thing's really designed, that aspect provision is designed to make sure that immigrants who are here legally, it's to make sure that their children and they don't get the child tax credit. I mean, again, you've got to be so remarkably sick to even come up with these ideas, just to try and figure out these ideas. Expanding school vouchers. The bill gives $20 billion in the form of tax credits to donors who give money to voucher schools. It also creates a tax shelter from paying capital gains taxes to donors who give appreciated stock to voucher schools. Most of you understand what they're trying to do to education. Education, public education, is something that has been in this country for a long time. It's designed to educate every child. There are easy arguments to have, which I'll save for another time, about the U.S. education system being largely designed to teach kids how to function in a kind of cog-like way in an authoritarian system, to make sure that you sit in the desk for 7 hours a day and listen to the dictator before you. There's some argument there. Also, the whitewashed history, et cetera, et cetera. So there are a lot of problems with public education. But ideally, ostensibly, in a perfect world, you would have free education in a very rich country for every child so that they could become smarter and live better lives. Ideally. the goal of this, the goal of vouchers, the goal of these charter schools, etc., is to make it so that mostly, and it may only be 80 or 90% per school, but mostly it's for wealthier children. It's for children from families that can afford to pay a large amount per year to have their kid in a better school, and that school then has a lot of money to do wonderful things like have more books and have computers and all of these things. Those kids are then taught more, taught better, taught in classes that are not 40 kids per teacher, so they get individual instruction. They then have a far easier time getting into a nicer college, which means they then go on to be the managerial class. If they're not the richest of the rich, if they're not that elite top class, then they're the managerial, professional managerial class. And so it makes sure that the rich who come from rich people then maintain the status quo of being largely the rich in the managerial class. And so all of this has a lasting impact on the class structure. And that's really what its design is. And the more they get the wealthier kids moved to charter schools, to private schools, they can then continue to gut public schools so that their education level goes further and further down. Stealth cuts to the Affordable Care Act. The bill allows tax credits that subsidize ACA premiums to expire at the end of 2025. The result will be out-of-pocket costs going up, becoming more expensive, and millions of people will lose their coverage. Of course, you can also get to the fact that we shouldn't have ACA. We should have universal health care for all. It should all be paid for by our government. That's how a good functioning society would work. Support for gun silencers. Sure, why not throw that in there? Buried deep in the bill is a provision that repeals the $200 tax on the sale of gun silencers, which have no lawful purpose other than concealing, it says shootings, but murders. Like, there's no reason for a silencer other than to, like, murder people. It doesn't, like, no one's hunting deer with a silencer, with like a hitman gun with a silencer. They're hunting humans and they want to be able to kill them, and because that is annoying if you're trying to murder someone and you're like, everybody's like, what's going on over there? And you're like, oh God, I just need a silencer, man. I've been saving up for one, but it's just too much trouble.